Welcome to Right on Track, a songwriting podcast. Thanks to Tone for tuning in. I'm Demi Michelle Schwartz, and I'm thrilled you're joining me on my songwriting journey. So kick back and relax, don't fall flat, and remember, stay right on track. Hey everyone, welcome back to Right on Track. Joining me today is a fabulous guest I'm so excited to have a chat with. Please welcome Jack Francis. Hey Jack, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you.
Fantastic.
I'm
I'm
very
so
well.
excited. Yeah, I'm so excited to have you on the show. I'm doing fabulous as well. And we have lots to chat about today, including your recent tour and your upcoming album. And so before we dive into all of that, I would love for you to share a little about yourself and your journey in the music industry so far.
Okay. I've been playing music for about probably 15 years, maybe longer. I started playing in bands and stuff when I was very young with my friends from school, and we'd play like pubs and social clubs, and we'd do cover songs. And it was a very, as I'm sure many musicians know, it's the hard way to to learn your craft. But it was a very valuable experience. So I went on after that into forming original bands and writing songs a lot more. And then eventually, after a bit of time off, I started doing a solo project, which is what Jack Francis is, and how that came about probably in my mid 20s. But I've been doing that for a good few years now.
That's fabulous. So how would you describe your songwriting process?
I'd say I write musically first. I write on guitar mostly, but sometimes more recently on piano. And I try to write melodies and music first, and then I will work lyrics around what I have. That's normally how it goes. It could just be a tagline that then turns into an entire song lyrically, but yeah, it's always for me music and melody first.
That's fascinating because I'm the opposite.
And yeah, I know a lot of people are. It's that which is fascinating to me as well.
Yeah. So when you start with the music, because when I start with the lyrics, I typically have some kind of concept or theme that I want to explore, maybe some story or experience that I've gone through. But when you're starting with music, how do you decide how to write the lyrics to that? Do you discover what mood the song is, the key, and think about what that reminds you of and go from there? I'm really curious how you fit the lyrics to the music.
So I'll play around with melodies quite a lot, and then sometimes words will start to form around the melodies that I'm singing, and then that can then evolve into a line that might be the kind of the crux of an entire song. Might be built around that. I do keep notes of not entire lyrics, but more just like it might be a line that I think of, or even a song title, and I keep that to hand because I think then if nothing's coming to me lyrically after working on the music for a while, then I'll look at that, look at all these things that I've written down over a long period of time, and most of them will probably never get used, but sometimes they again turn into um, a more complete song and a whole project.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I definitely do that too. I think sometimes as songwriters, if we get a spark of inspiration or think of a title, so many of us are like, "Oh, I'll remember that later," and you never do. And so
No,
I
you
think
have to
it's
write it down. Yeah, you have
yeah,
to write it down.
yeah, you do. You definitely do. So I think it's really great too, like I said, write it down, keep that list because sometimes I've had this experience where there is a concept that I really want to write about and I had a title in mind for it. And it just wasn't fitting any of the songs I was writing. And sometimes you just need to wait for the right moment to bring that song to life. And so I definitely think that
Yeah,
keeping those lyrics so you have them and keeping those titles and then whenever you're writing something that ties back to that, then that's when you can bring that past inspiration.
yeah, I totally agree. There's songs like that for me. There's one or two songs on my latest album that were written quite a long time before, but not finished, and it came about that this was just the right time and the right circumstances to get them finished and to put them onto a record. So yeah, sometimes some songs take seconds and some songs take years, to actually, it has to be the right time for them.
Yeah, no, completely. I 100% agree. So, along with the songwriting, you also do a lot of performing live, and you just finished a tour. So, can you give a glimpse into what that experience was like?
Yeah, it was great. I've just been out for 22 dates around the UK and Ireland with a band called Ferris and Sylvester, who are good friends of mine. We've recorded my two albums were recorded with them at their home studio, but they've also had an album out this year, and this was their headline tour. So I was just a support act going around opening up for them all over the UK and then over to Ireland as well. So we've had a good long run of dates, and the response has been incredible.
That's fabulous. Were you able to play any unreleased songs that are on the album during that tour?
Yeah, I did. I played a couple. I was sort of changing the set list around as I went, but there were definitely a couple of songs that people wouldn't have heard before. Um, yeah, so that was interesting. It's quite nerve wracking, obviously, playing new songs and under the circumstances where you're under pressure of trying to essentially steal another band's audience. Like the reason you support a band on tours and they want you to support them is so you can gain new fans. And if you're testing out songs, it can be quite nerve wracking sometimes.
Oh, for sure.
But it
And
was
I
great. It was great.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I completely agree with that. And I don't do a whole lot of live performing. I haven't done a tour before, but just like every single time I play a different song live that I haven't played before, it definitely
Yeah.
is nerve-wracking to see how the audience will receive it and all of that. And for artists like me who haven't done a full tour before, what advice do you have for them going out on the road?
I think you've got to get rest where you can, and it becomes, it becomes a routine, really. The whole setup and the shows and the pack downs, they become routine after a little while. It's great fun, and you see a lot of new places. It can be physically taxing if you're not too careful, and you need to be able to rest as much as you can. As much as you want to enjoy yourself and meet new people, you can do all that, but you just have to try and not go overboard.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And I feel like for me personally, especially if I was touring and visiting different places, I would definitely want to do all the sightseeing and all of that
Yeah,
and fill the time. But you definitely have a really great point that it's important to rest and not wear yourself out because that'll definitely have
yeah.
an effect on you during your
That's it. You want to
performances.
see new places. You want to, like, you want to walk around towns that you haven't seen before. You want to pack it all in, but it's unrealistic sometimes. You have to just take it easy and do the shows.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's chat about the album. So you did mention that you released your debut album and Early Retirement coming up is your sophomore album. So how would you describe your evolution from your debut to your sophomore project?
The debut album was basically a collection of songs that I'd been I'd been writing basically for quite a few years before we made the first album, and I'd say I had about 40 to 50 songs that I was looking at, and then we picked the ones that we thought were right for for the first record. And the difference between that and the second one is that it was a much more concise concept. So I had the album title, and the artwork was shot, and we knew what it was going to be really before we even recorded anything at all. I knew what the songs were going to be. They all had this sort of running theme around them, and that was the concept of the whole record. We knew we wanted to create this kind of world for these songs to live in, and that was the difference, I'd say, between the first and the second one. We just picked songs for the first one that we liked and thought would fit, and we wanted to record them to the best ability we could. And then the second one was definitely a more concise concept, and yeah, I'd say that was the main difference between the two, really.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm totally resonating because I did the exact same thing. I'm in the process of releasing singles for my sophomore album. Between my debut and this one, I released an EP, which is definitely like a
Yeah,
transition project that helped me to leap from my debut to this one. But I definitely had a
right.
similar experience where when I was doing my first album, that's when I was like looking into studios and trying to find producers and just developing my skills as a songwriter, discovering what I wanted to say as an artist. And it was a very big self discovery project for me when I was exploring a lot of
Mm,
introverted and
yeah,
introspective kind of emotions about things I was feeling, thinking, insecurities, all of that. And I definitely had a similar thing where I had a ton of songs and I just picked through and decided, which ones kind of fit, which ones were the strongest. And then I put together my
yeah,
debut album, and for this one, before I like started fully writing music for it, I wrote a song called Quiet. And when I wrote that song, it completely gave me a total vision for my next project. And so
yeah,
as I was writing the music, I had this vision in mind. I was able to see the transformation of the project and the,
mm,
flow from song to song and looking at what's missing, what holes are on this
yeah,
project that I can fill. And then when I got into doing the photo shoot and the artwork, I had such a clear vision that I was able to properly pick the outfits and communicate with my graphic designer with like the vibe and the look that I was going for. And so
yeah,
I completely agree that when you have a vision ahead of time, everything feels so much more cohesive and you actually get it
yeah.
done a lot quicker too.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. That's right. It's a very similar experience to me that what you've just described actually. Like one, I wrote a song called Failure, and then I wrote a song called Mercy, and the two songs then kind of gave the project a proper direction before before we'd recorded anything or before I'd shot the artwork. But once I wrote those songs, I knew that this album was going to have a more of a theme, and what I started then when you realize that, you can start to think about the concept, the artwork, and everything that goes with it to just make it a complete kind of project.
Yeah, absolutely. So before I have you go through and do a little track by track of the album, I would love for you to give a deeper look into the concept of this album and the overall message that you hope listeners take away.
Yeah, I mean, the album is called Early Retirement, so it's kind of it's a joke, and it's well, I hope it's a joke, but it is as we all know, this is a hard industry to be involved in, especially now, with social media and streaming services, and it becomes really really difficult to kind of carve a career that where you can actually earn a living and continue to put everything you have into your art and your songwriting and your performing and recording. So that kind of running theme is around being a musician, but in the broader sense, it's about you know fallen dreams, I guess, and like thinking about how maybe things haven't quite gone the way that you would have hoped, and the album is coming to terms with a lot of things. I think is the running theme of the record, and early retirement just it's kind of it's a joke, but the if you listen to the words on the record, there's definitely a resonance about and questions around whether this is something that I can do, looking towards the future or not, and do it to the best of my ability. That's kind of what it's about, really. That's a very personal answer to me. Obviously, that's like
Yeah.
I want the songs to mean whatever they mean to other people. But in the personal sense, that's what this album is. It's very introspective about my experiences.
Yeah, no, that's what I was just gonna say. It sounds like this is a very personal project, and I think it's really great
Yeah,
when songwriters write from an authentic place because this is what it personally means to you, and because you have an emotional resonance with this, that will allow
yeah,
for other listeners to draw their own connections and see these songs in the way they need to.
yeah, yeah. I hope so. I hope that it comes across and it's not just um, a self-indulgent mess. But I think we have to look. I think the greatest songs look inside and pull things out of yourself that then can relate to other people. Something deeply personal. If you're going through it, someone else is going through it, and or a lot of people are going through it also. So you can, by making something very personal, it often can have the effect of resonating with a lot of people.
Right. Yeah. And that's the balance of personal and universal. I think that whenever you're
Yeah,
writing about something that is personal and you have that emotional connection, as long as you're speaking from these human emotions and experiences, that definitely brings a level of universality. Is that a word?
yeah.
Universality.
I
There we
don't know, but
go.
it should be.
Yeah. To the music for them to be able to connect. So, now I would love for you to give a glimpse into the album. So if you could list each song and share the
Yeah,
inspiration behind it and what it's about.
yeah. So the first track is called "Promised Land," and it's one of the older songs on the record. Actually, it's one that I've been playing live for a few years. So it's one that, if anyone's seen me or heard me over the last few years, they may have heard this one before. But it's about trying to reach a goal. Really, that's the theme of the song. It's about trying to follow something, even though it's painful sometimes, and whatever the sort of cost of it or the damage of it is. It's about being focused and sort of obsessed with what you're moving towards. That's the theme of that song. The second track is called "Tired of Trying," which kind of speaks for itself. It's about being sort of mentally and physically drained, and it's about trying to find strength in your vulnerability as well, and trying to pick yourself up, um, and realizing that you're stronger than what you're putting out there. Mercy is a mercy is This is why this is one of the songs that sort of sums up the album. It's about realizing that you've dedicated your life to something, but it's actually possibly caused you more harm than it has caused you happiness. Because we're all obviously told to follow our dreams or whatever, but that can be a lot more difficult than it takes more than hard work. Let's put it that way. But I think it's that song kind of sums up a lot about the record, and it's kind of asking for help. Really, that's basically that's that song. It's a cry for help. Um, a bit of your time is a slightly more light-hearted song, but it's about wanting to, which is track four. It's about wanting to kind of maintain people's attention and to try and give them something maybe that they're not used to or that they haven't heard before. And this it's quite a simple sort of pop song that I really liked. I wanted something on the record to be a little bit lighter than some of the other songs that we've done up to that point. Lifeline is the next track, and this was one of the singles we released. It's probably the oldest song on the album, even though I'd never played it live. It's one of those ones, as we were talking about earlier. I'd written it a long time ago, but I just hadn't found a place uh, for it, and I hadn't quite finished it, but it was almost there. It kind of fell into this album. It just felt like the themes of it worked really well, and it was kind of about the end of something long term. Um, so it could be a relationship that people could relate it to, but it's also about basically realizing that you have to pick up the pieces of something and try and rebuild and move forwards, and that's what it's about. 21st Century Man is the track six, and that is it's one of our favourite songs. Myself and Archie, who produced the record for me, it's our favourite recording on the album. Probably it's a piano based song. It's kind of about being a millennial. Really, I wanted to write something that I don't know. I'd heard a lot of. I don't really pay much attention to generational labeling, but I think it divides us already. Um, in hard times. But I heard some things said about people my age, that some of which I think are true and some aren't. And I wanted to put some of these things into a song and try and sum up the experience of feeling how it feels to have been born into a analog kind of world, and then by the time you grow up and become an adult, it's a very very different world than the one you grew up in. And I think that's one thing that's unique about being a so-called millennial, is that we uh, it's not harder. Every generation has their own things to deal with, but it's changed an awful lot in the last 30 years. Everything has changed. So I kind of wanted to put that into a song from the perspective of somebody who's a little bit twisted and warped by all of it. Failure is the next track after that, and I always say they say to write what you know, and I wanted to write failure. It's about being an artist. There's no other way about that. It's about being an artist in modern day, and how all of us, I know a lot of musicians, I know myself speaking, that musicians, songwriters, artists, whatever you do, it's easy to feel like a failure these days because we look at social media and we see people portraying versions of their lives that aren't necessarily true, and that makes you feel worse about your situation. You know, we all have done it. We've all been guilty of going, "Why am I not doing this? Why didn't I get that gig? Or why didn't I get that award or whatever?" And it can distract our focus from what's actually important. So I wanted to write a song that's slightly tongue in cheek, but is also very much um, from a real place. And I said to somebody recently, like, it's for context. Like, I'd written the song, I'd just been dropped from a label and a publishing label at the same time. I'd lost all my income on a day's notice, and I was turning. I was about to turn 30. We were in the middle of a pandemic, and everything was quite bleak at the time. So it's kind of a funny song about a time that wasn't very funny, and that is yeah, that's where it came from. Forever Alone is the next track after that, and it's about how being a musician and a songwriter, if that's what you do, is it can be quite a selfish thing to do at times. You sometimes you have to take opportunities, no matter what. No matter what you have on around you, you have to sometimes drop your friends or drop your family because something's come in and you can't turn it down, and it can, it doesn't feel great for want of a better way of describing it. So it's kind of about wondering whether it's easier to do this if you're on your own, and it's easier for the people around you if they don't have to deal with you doing this for a living. Under the Bright Lights is the next track, and that's about being a traveling musician. Really, that is what it's about. It's about being far from home, and uh, if you tour long enough or if you play enough gigs, sometimes you can, you get homesick and you miss the sort of familiarities of, because you can be in a new place and meet new people and new faces, which is great. And then it also can be you lack something familiar and you start to wonder, am I cut out for this? Should I be doing this? Because do I want a normal familiar life? It kind of explores that anyway. And Merry Go Round after that is a song about it's kind of about the craziness of the world around us and like the news cycle, how quickly it moves, and how insane it is. And over the last few years, how something that years ago would have been a complete scandal is now gone within a day, and that's because of our news cycle and social media. And uh, it's kind of again explores those themes of social media and politics and global warming and all those things that kind of just constantly buzz around us. And if you pay too much attention, then uh, it can really drag you down. And but obviously we have to pay attention because it is the world around us. We can't ignore it. And if you ignore it, then there's no hope for you. But I wanted to write this song in here about merry-go-round being the kind of insane cycle that we're in. And Curtain Call was the last track, and that speaks for itself as well. It's kind of it's quite a sad and personal song about wondering whether this is something that I want to do anymore, which it definitely is something that I want to do. Um, but there are times where, as we all feel, whether this is actually viable, whether it can be done without us losing some sense of ourselves and some sense of our dignity by parading ourselves on social media or wherever. But yeah, I wanted to write a really sort of honest song about considering um, not doing this anymore. And again, these all run into the theme of early retirement, the theme of the record. And yeah, it was a time when I was exploring a lot of that in the writing. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much a sum up of each track on the album.
That is absolutely fantastic. I have several observations. First, it's super cool that you really dedicated thought to the track list. Like, I can see a story unfolding from track to track to track. And
Right.
even though you wrote these songs with the title in mind and a concept in mind, they do stand on their own. And that's really cool.
Thank
And
you.
the other thing too is that you definitely have this kind of woven thing to the track list where you have personal thoughts and experiences, but then you're also looking outside yourself and talking about issues in the world and different things that you're seeing around you. And so I think you really intertwined your life with the external, and I think that's really incredible, and it also gives a
Thank
richness
you.
to the problem too. Yeah, you're totally welcome. So I think this definitely shows like you put a ton of thought into this, from the track list to the content to finding a way to make it personal while also reaching out and talking about bigger picture issues and conflicts and things like that. So absolutely fantastic job.
No, thank you very much. Yeah, I hope that it kind of connects, and the world outside, the world around us, it does affect what we do. You know, the stuff about social media and the news cycle and all of that has affected our industry and our career, and it's affected um the way you portray yourself nowadays, and the way that you to get yourself out there is numbers focused. It's not focused on. It's more about being seen than it is about being heard, which is crazy
Mhm.
for musicians. And we want to be heard. We don't necessarily want to be doing dance routines on TikTok.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
just become it's become pretty crazy. I hope that good music still speaks through. You know, still comes through, and I think in the end, it won't be like this forever. They'll only we just live in the time where it's really prevalent right now, but I don't think that'll last forever. I think
Yeah.
it, you know, it's TikTok right now, but then and everybody's been told you need to be on TikTok, you need to be on TikTok, but in 10 years it'll be something else.
Yeah.
There'll be something else, and there'll be something else after that, and then are we expected to maintain 7 or 8 different sort of social media accounts
Yeah.
where we have different content on each one. You
Mhm.
know, it's not viable. It's not a viable model.
No.
Um, so yeah, I think it does. All of that affects what we're doing, and it changes the landscape of where we are
Right.
and what we're moving towards. Yeah,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm not on TikTok yet. I'm very like not, I don't want to be. I don't want to go on
yeah,
TikTok because I don't want it to shape me and the way I write my music, which is what it's
yeah,
doing. I also think your point about wanting to be heard rather than just seen is extremely powerful, because this is a numbers game now, and it's very sad. I have seen like pitches even sent to me for the show, and like publicists will preface the whole thing with a certain number of Spotify streams or whatever, and it's like, yeah, but can I hear the song and what is the story
yeah,
behind the song? I
yeah.
don't care how
Exactly,
many streams the song
exactly.
has. Because
Yeah,
nowadays, too, with AI and stuff, I just had to contact Spotify for artists to get one of my songs removed from an AI generated playlist. And so nowadays, too, it's like, what even is real? And so I
yeah,
am absolutely not judging someone's song based on how many streams they have. I can hear a song that has 5 million streams and it's not that great, and I can hear a song that has 1,000 streams and it's fantastic, and there's a lot of heart and
yeah,
emotion to it. So I
yeah.
definitely think
I
there is an
totally agree.
issue going on with this.
Yeah, and it's hard to get to the bottom of it when it's just everyone's just throwing their coins into the fountain, if you like, and it's just a mess. No
Right.
one's getting a hold of it because the people who have a big influence on the industry are just going along with
I
whatever
know.
they think is viable at the time, but it can't carry on like this forever. We
No.
just happen to live in a time where it's important.
Yeah.
You have to be on it,
Yeah.
you
No,
know.
for sure.
Unfortunately,
Yeah. And I think that's why like
not
songwriters like
TikTok
us
though. I'm not on
too.
TikTok.
Like songwriters like us, just to keep doing it authentically in the right way. I'm never going to
Yeah.
change who I am to fit some kind of false
No, absolutely not.
model.
Absolutely not. And you shouldn't have to. That's the point. That's the point of being an artist.
Yeah.
That's yeah. You have to
Yeah.
give people an unapologetic version of what you're doing, and you don't have to change it suit to suit someone else.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was just gonna ask you if there are any final words of wisdom, but I think you just hit it there.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, that's great.
Fantastic. Well, Jack, it was lovely having you on this show. Good luck
Absolute
with the
pleasure.
album release, and I'm so, so
Thank
excited
you.
for you. You're welcome. Can you please share with everybody where they can find you on social and listen to your music?
Yes, you can find me. It's the letter J, Francis Songs, and that's the Instagram and Twitter and Facebook link. So that will link you to all those. And my website is www.jackfrancissongs.com, which has links to the music and the socials on there as well.
Fabulous. Thank you so much again for joining me.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And listeners, I hope you enjoyed this chat with Jack Francis. And of course, until next time, stay
Stay
right
right
on
on track.
track.